Thank you. We'll go ahead and call the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District Executive Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Director Weber,
Here.
Director Costa,
Here.
Director Rice is not with us this evening, and he let me know that beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the committee's scope, including items on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
I have no speaker cards. If anybody online is wishing to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand feature. No, no public comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll go to consent agenda. Action summary minutes. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Can we get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right. We have a first and I'll second. Roll call.
All right. Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Costa.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Consent calendar is adopted.
All right. Thank you. That brings us to our presentation discussion item. So board goal number 3, innovation and service delivery. And we have our Chief Development Officer, Jeff Fry.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And good afternoon. We're here today to present the next goal review, if you will. So, remind you that kind of the driving force behind the executive committee is to move the needle on a lot of our strategic planning efforts. We were first tasked with developing the strategic plan itself. At the same time, we were also developing a strategy or a goal area so that we could then show the executive committee what this routine or repetition looks like. But doing the strategic plan and developing a goal strategy at the same time was confusing for all of us. So now with that, we have lessons learned, and we can now start to repeat that process, and we can get the executive committee used to what that routine looks like, and also all of staff. So we're not asking for a lot of decisions tonight. We're not asking for a lot of directions. This is to simply introduce that new way of doing business, if you will. So with that said, I think about this stuff all day long, every day. If you have questions, these are very dense slides. And this is our attempt as an executive staff to get on the same page with the executive committee. So as we go, please stop me and ask questions if need be. So like I said, we're just introducing how the strategic development process is going to work related to the next goal. And the way we want to do this is, again, that repetitive process, we get used to it. We always want to start with what we call the crux. If you remember, ICS redid our SWOT analysis, and they did an internal review and an external review and came up with 7 or 8 priority statements that we should always be thinking about as we take on these strategic initiatives. So what I did is I went through that crux and pulled out the ones that were relative to the service delivery environment. And those are there for you here. These are not new. I just want to be clear. Aspects of these has been in every board strategic plan, at least for this one in the last 2. We've moved the needle in these areas, but not quite enough. So this is our next attempt to continue to get better at what we do. So the first one we all know about, our jurisdiction is growing, not only in number and capacity, but so is our call volume and the risk we're facing. The board has, over the last 2 strategic plans, to give you awareness as staff of what does 1 year and 5 years look like. What are we always preparing for next? So that has been consistent over a couple of multiple plans. I will introduce how we've attempted to do that. We are also very aware that the environment for the crews is changing. From a risk perspective and from a call type matrix, we're moving away from what was fire rescue dominant into the EMS world. And then even in the EMS world, we're moving away from a true EMS emergency to more quality of life, social type issues. So everybody has pointed that out, has asked us for a plan. So there's an opportunity for here to take a look at those and what it means for service delivery as well. Finally, the foundational strength. This has been in every strategic plan. Metro Fire prides itself in the consolidation of the 16 predecessor agencies and believe that creates a strength, not only regionally, but also for specialized capacity and the ability to provide highly specialized service. And what does that mean as we look at our neighboring partners and ability to provide some of the specialized services outside of jurisdiction? So those were the four that were brought forward through that Crux scan. Once we do the SWOT analysis, we jump straight to the board direction. So at the very top of this slide, if you recall in our goal development, the board told us what success looks like. And we have it right there at the top of the screen called the desired outcome. And the bottom third of the screen, you have the indicators of achievement. Those 7 indicators are what the board developed in the strategic planning session. Through this process, there'll be an opportunity for you all to reevaluate those statements in this process to determine, is that where we're truly trying to move the needle? Do we need to change the statement? Do we need to reduce? Do we need to expand? So we will evaluate all of these in kind. I will generally tell you those 7 indicators of achievement are aligned around the 4 environmental statements that I just showed you. They just measure those. I will bring up here in the middle, this is goal 3 of 4. Planning domains. If the board is going to start to tackle this issue, you're going to want your service delivery experts in the room. But there may come opportunities where you need to rely on testimony or input from others. So when I say resource management, I think planning and development. If we're looking 5 years down the road, that's kind of what we do for you all. And then fiscal stewardship, this has to turn into dollars at some point in time. So you're probably going to want some combination again of planning and development and finance to weigh in on those things at some point in time. So with that, I just want to do a quick review of work that we have already done in this space through previous board strategic plans that are related to service delivery. The first one you are all very familiar with, we put together in the last 5 years. It's that data-based informational service delivery goals and objectives that allows us to look at this year, but also look 5 years in the future. So this becomes the fact statement, if you will. The risk reduction plan is really truly looking at that. What is our call volume? What are the trends in our call volume? And what does that mean in terms of risk, not only for the EMS 911 response system, but for our risk reduction expertise and our educators to try to start to reduce some of that call volume and educate people on how they can take care of themselves in the future. So that was an effort that we had moved forward in 2022. At some point in time, so this was a work of a consultant. Depending on bandwidth, I would like to have a discussion with the executive committee about doing this in-house, maybe doing it every other year with the service delivery, so that we continue to look at both data sets in relation to the bigger service delivery picture. The 2 middle ones there is really a part of our PIO platform and our education platform. We're related to what does communication with the public look like through the emergency response lens. And then finally, the service delivery plan, I'll refer to you, Director Weber. This was supposed to be the connection between the planning world and then the ops world to be very specific about what implementation of new service looks like. And can we pull subject matter experts into a room and agree on the plan so that we can look at the 5-year window to implement it. That 2024 effort was our very first attempt at that. We always get better as we go. We did not do it in 2025. So this is something that we could explore as a strategy to continue to build toward the board's goals.
I need to comment on this before I forget. So the consultant subject that you brought up, yeah, I would lean toward, again, if you have the bandwidth for it, 100% you taking that over, or your division taking that over. You're much more ingrained in actually what is happening here at Metro. So yes, I would agree with that right off the get-go.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so high level, this would get into like a review of what service delivery means so that there's wide understanding of what we're trying to think about. Broadly, when you look at our mission statement, our service delivery model can be broken up into three components. The one we talk and think a lot about is emergency response. There is a risk reduction component, and then the third piece is education. You can see here on my third tile, we've actually addressed the education component through the communications goal. So that piece is taken care of. We're working on it behind the scenes. So the work we're going to do at the executive committee can focus on emergency response and risk reduction. I'm not going to do a deep dive here. I presume the executive committee with the subject matter experts will want to do a deeper dive into the 4 response components that make up our all risk response. I'm just going to introduce this, and there'll be plenty of time to talk about it in the future. But this is just kind of an awareness slide. Again, an awareness slides for what risk reduction is. It is a continuum, if you will. It does start with education, which I just noted. It does end with a 911 call if we can't resolve it before it hits our system. What happens in between is us trying to mitigate those calls. So we do that through engineering, enforcement, and economic incentive. We traditionally think about risk reduction in structure fire protection, and we have an entire division that does that work. But we also have many subject matter experts in our operational division that also do this work. And, Chief Vestals with the wildfire mitigation and the preventative burning, the weed abatement program. We actually do a lot of work in this space that we don't talk or think about a lot. I want to equate that to the work that's happening right now in the EMS division with things like behavioral health, MIH, APOT. Those are all risk reduction strategies. We are trying to reduce the number of calls that hit the 911 system, but then also require transfer to the hospital. So I think that's a really good way to think and talk about the work that we're trying to do. It does garner a lot of attention at the national level, and it's a good way to think about the problem. Lastly, one that's top of mind for a lot of us here that I think we should dive into, and I attribute it to our hazmat, but it's the lithium ion battery issue. So I think we can think about that through all of these lenses, from education to engineering and economic incentives to our response. So there are a lot of us in this district that are thinking about this issue through each individual lens. I think it would be good for the executive committee to think about tying that all together and making sure our subject matter experts are talking and coordinating on what that means for the entire district. So now we're really moving into the board component of this. Our goal with the executive committee is to start in this collaborative way in these chambers and have conversations and figure out what the right level of work is, who needs to weigh in on it, and ultimately produce these strategies that that accomplish the end state, the desired goals, and then allows us to operationalize them and put them into work. So that goes through this process here. The executive committee is heavily involved up front in telling us how to get on the right page. It then turns over to the executive staff to operation. We rely on ICS here, turn the strategies into charters and bring it back to you all once it's a project, and we can tell you how we're going to move this forward. And then regular reporting to you all in the full board on progress as it's implemented. So that is the process that we need to start. So critically important to that process, you've heard me say it with this wheel, I'm going to continue to say it. I do think it's our biggest challenge in this space right now. We need to answer the questions in step. Inevitably, what will happen, we are going to go have deep conversations about what service delivery looks like. And I've been in the rooms with everybody. The first question I will get is, how much money do I get? And we can't answer that question until we know what service we're trying to provide. So once we understand the service we're trying to provide, we can understand the impacts on the organization, what people we need to hire, what shifts they need to work, what does it mean for labor? And then we can then plan to when are we going to implement that over the next 1 to 5 years, and then financially cost that. If we're jumping back and forth, it becomes very difficult to do. So I'm going to ask the board to keep us very focused on service delivery. So again, just a reminder, education is already addressed. It's in the comm strategy. And so this really gets to what I think is the most important slide in the presentation. The purpose of this executive committee, the deliberation, is built around the executive committee and the collaboration between executive staff and the members. And we need your input to tell us how you want this to work and what you want us as your planning staff to do. So I think relevant questions here that we've kicked around with ICS is, what are the opportunities to truly innovate? What problems do we need to solve that are existing in our system today? And then the biggest question we're running into is, what does resource alignment look like as they continue to become constrained? We're going to have to make difficult choices, right? So this is that iterative process with the executive committee to solve those problems. So here's my last slide, and this is what I want to leave you all with. There are lots of ways to do this work. I've seen every variation under the sun. It could be a direction from the executive committee to assigning it to one person and go get it done and just bring back the report. It could be go work in small groups. It can be go do wide, what we call charrettes with the public to get feedback. I think President Costa, you've been pretty clear that you prefer the subject matter experts come here and have a conversation in an open dialogue. We have a lot of subject matter experts. So in the communication space, it's brand new. We don't have a lot of people. So it was a very quick dialogue between us and Chief Mitchell and you all. Service delivery, we have 50, 60 experts. So what we'll need to know is, at what level do you want to have the conversations? Who do you want to invite to the conversations? How do you want that input received? And then how do you want to direct input back to staff based on the information you're hearing? And that all that dialogue, however you want it to look, should lead to the production of one or more strategies that you want to start to tackle. From there, as your planning staff, we have enough information to execute and start to develop everything out so that we can come back to the board for a presentation about what implementation looks like. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any initial thoughts, direction, we have 30 days to the next executive committee to think about this. I would expect a much bigger presence. I would also like to get the right subject matters experts in the room to have that dialogue. So happy to take any feedback or thoughts on this.
Do you have any initial thoughts?
Sure.
Director Weber?
Well, I agree with casting a wide net, absolutely. Subject matter experts, good. However, 50 or 60 people in a room is going to be a giant headache.
Mhm.
So I would suggest narrowing that down to either division managers and or project managers, such as whomever is running the rescue at the station level, that individual. Chief Barfel naturally, just with that one subject matter, but I would suggest taking a look at that and getting it down to a workable number for
Okay.
yourself. That's just my 2 cents on that. I like the direction all of it is going. Again, I'm going to have a couple of spoons from you at some point and discuss this further and dive deep into it and get my head wrapped around it. But I think you've got a good program set in place. You've said that many times, something that you can Lego with, if you will, move some things around, but they all will work the same with whatever project you're working on. So yeah, I appreciate all the work you've done. It makes a ton of sense to me. Again, I saw in some of these slides, yeah, as much less duplication as we can possibly
Right.
provide. Yeah, I like your plan. So we'll talk more in the future, but thank you.
Okay.
I would agree, Director Weber. It's about moving forward. So you mentioned within the next 30 days, we'll be coming back and having this conversation in more depth. And we've talked about a variety of different aspects. What would you recommend being the first part of that?
So I think what I want to do, I've had this conversation with Chief Allison, Chief Wagaman. I think what we want to do is take the next 30 days, absorb this ourselves.
Okay.
And then get really specific as a group about how we think we should approach this.
Okay.
And again, most of this falls on their side of the equation, not mine, right? So we need that planning operational perspective here. So we intend to set up a number of meetings to talk about it internally. I think that's good information to bring back to you.
Absolutely.
And then I think what we'll probably do is break it up by presentation items with some of our thoughts of where to start, if that's okay with the executive.
Perfect.
committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Council.
I agree with that.
Okay. And then Chief, on the operation side, since it's going to take time from you and the team, do you have the resources necessary to do that? What do you need from the board?
First off, I would need to know exactly what the topic was, right? Because it's the pie in the sky. Like we can take this anywhere we need to go. I think we're doing pretty good with our services today, but looking into the future and future challenges, that's really why we're building this foundation.
Sure.
So as we sit down and we start to define where we're going next, I can absolutely answer that question. With any new initiative, it takes bandwidth, right?
Of course.
But with that, we set a priority and we make it a priority to get it done. So we look forward to it. This is a very positive process and I can't wait to tackle it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So I would say like part of this is the resource component that you've mentioned. And so we just want to make sure you have the right resources and the resources to do the work. And clearly the board is very focused on implementing. And I think this will help us get in front of some of the feedback we've been getting
Right.
around what are we doing? How are we doing it? And this is the right process to get those people involved, the various parties involved. So
Right.
I think this is a great first step. There's a lot of work there, so please don't hesitate. But I'm looking forward to what the next 30 days look like and then bringing it back to the executive committee.
And it goes back to our wheel, right? Because at the end of this is the communications piece.
Yes.
So as we do the work here, it gives us the content for us to talk about with all the groups that you've directed us to go have those conversations. with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Very good.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. With that, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 10th. Meeting adjourned.